Great, thank you.
Okay. Let's see. All right, well, it is time to get this show on the road. It's 1 p.m. Eastern. Thanks everyone for joining me here on this WebEx. My name is Eric Frierson, and I am the team lead for Discovery Services Engineering with EBSCO. My role with the company is probably, if you're a systems librarian or someone who loves tinkering around with websites and library systems and that kind of thing, I've got probably what amounts to the perfect job here at EBSCO, is that I get to interact with you all and figure out the right ways to integrate EDS into your environment. Now, Curriculum Builder as a product is no longer EDS only. I imagine many of you on the line have EDS, but if you don't, Curriculum Builder is now available for all EBSCO host databases, and I'll talk a little bit about that over the course of the WebEx. A little bit about my background. Before I joined the company, well, it's over 3 years ago now, so I'm gonna lose my librarian cred pretty fast, I'm pretty sure. But I was head of library systems at St. Edward's University in Austin, Texas, and I've also been a reference and instruction librarian at the University of Texas at Arlington, and an instructional technology librarian at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, and that's where I got my library degree from. This particular project, I bring up my background because it's one that I've been working on for quite some time due to just the trends that we saw in higher education in general. Before I get going too far though, there is a chat box at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, and I'm going to try to monitor that over the course of this WebEx. So if you have questions, please put them in there, and if I don't answer you right away, I will scroll up and get to all of your questions before the end of this session. I would like to ask you a question though, and have you put it in the chat box. How many of you have already attended a WebEx before on Curriculum Builder in the past? I guess that's a question. That was a weird way to lilt it. So we've got a lot of no's. All right, that's great. So what I'm going to do in this WebEx is make sure everyone understands what the product is and does. For those of you that have attended a WebEx on Curriculum Builder in the past, I'm also going to share all of the new features and the development that has gone into it since the last time you've probably looked at the product. So let's start off. I mentioned my experience as a librarian mostly because when I worked at the library, one of the big things we did there was we implemented EBSCO Discovery Service. And for us, this was a big effort because we were trying to eliminate the number of information silos in our website. I mean, before any discovery system, a user that goes to a library website is going to be presented with a list of databases. And at St. Ed, where we were largely an undergraduate institution, knowing which of those databases was a task that not many students would be able to accomplish. So the Discovery Service in general helped us bring all of that information into a single search interface. However, the thing that we noticed about it is the library itself was still a silo on campus. So even though we had built this single search box for all of our students to access our information in a way that they were familiar with doing, keyword searching, a single search and getting results back, we were still separate from where the majority of teaching and learning happened. So here's a quick map of St. Edward's University. The library is over here on campus. When we thought about the library and its building, we realized that, we were a bit out from the central part of campus. All of the teaching and learning happened in classrooms all across a campus. So students didn't actually come to the library to interact with their faculty members, to do the work of the university. The teaching and learning happened somewhere else. Whenever a faculty member would assign a research project to students, they might come to the library building and get some help from a librarian or use our print collection in the building. And they would use our building a lot for study purposes and all the things that students come to the building for. But In short, we weren't in the classrooms. I think there have been a lot of efforts in this area to get librarians to be a part of the teaching and learning experience. There's, what we've been doing for years, right? We've had instructional sessions where we go into the classroom and introduce ourselves and our resources. There have even been some deeper efforts with, kind of the trend of embedded librarianship, where a librarian will actually be a part of the class. They'll attend the class and be a resource in the classroom for the students. So there were a lot of efforts being made with our physical presence in the physical classrooms on campus, even though the building itself was separate from where the teaching and learning actually happened. We noticed, at least in my role as head of library systems, is I noticed that there was a digital equivalent here. The library website sits outside where all of the teaching and learning is actually happening in the digital environment. So like a lot of universities, St. Ed's had a major push for online learning, and even the brick and mortar classes, those in-person classes, had a digital component to them. And that was in our Blackboard instance. And if you think about where the library is in relation to the physical classrooms on campus, the library website occupies a similar disconnected kind of state for where the actual teaching and learning happens in the online environment. So if we try to make the same analogy here, where's the library and where is the classroom where all that teaching and learning is happening? All of the classrooms are in these learning management systems, and I'm gonna say LMS over and over again over the course of this WebEx. And when I say LMS, I'm talking about these learning management systems like Canvas, Moodle, Blackboard, Sakai, Desire to Learn. If you take a moment in the chat box, I'd like to know what learning management systems are at the universities and colleges and schools that you're at. So go ahead and punch that into the chat box so I get a sense. So far, boy, it's running the gamut. We've got Moodle, Canvas, Blackboard, Sakai's in there, Canvas, in fact, Moodle and Canvas. There's one that has multiple, and that's not entirely unusual either. There is one, there's a library, I know it's a huge library given, but I think it was Rutgers University that has 4 different learning management systems that various faculty members are using on campus. So integration with these tools is somewhat of a challenge for library companies. So EBSCO, serves the library industry, and I think before Curriculum Builder came out, there was a big challenge trying to figure out how we can work with this because everybody uses something slightly different. We've got the Genza bars, the D2Ls, the Moodles, and each of them works in a different way. So it's incredibly inefficient to try to develop a tool that works with every single one of these because you have to learn every single one of those systems and keep up to date with it. So Curriculum Builder is actually an effort at trying to work with standards that exist with learning management systems. So let's move forward a little bit. I want to think about what the process is like to work within the learning management systems now. So if you have Curriculum Builder, great. If you don't, this will be a good exercise for you in thinking about how your faculty members interact with library materials in their online classes now. So for example, let me pop open here. I want to know if this were your library's main search box and a faculty member wanted to include something from the library inside their Moodle space or their Sakai space or whatever LMS you're using. They wanted to take an article that you have access to through the library and put it in that space to where it appears here for students to read it as part of their classroom experience. What's the process that your faculty member would do now? So in the chat box, if you wouldn't mind, just give me the step-by-step that a faculty member would have to take in order to go from finding an article on the library website to getting it linked appropriately or somehow available to students in their learning management system. I realize this may take a moment to type out, but all right. Wow, lots of familiar things. Actually, there's some really interesting service opportunities here. Okay. All right. So I'm going to summarize what I've seen so far, and there are about 3 or 4 different types of responses I see. One is the the library does a lot of hand-holding in this instance. The faculty member might tell you what articles they want, and then the librarian will put together a document of some kind that has all of the appropriate permalinks to get into the learning management system. At that point, the faculty member has to figure out how to get that document up and into their class. Another person is saying that they will go in, they will find the persistent link for the article, and they will come back here to their learning management system class website and paste in the link. That works sort of, and I'm pretty sure you've had the same experience with this. No matter how many times you go to like the Blackboard training days on your campus and you help faculty members realize that they need to make an effort to find the persistent link, it just doesn't happen because faculty members don't do this kind of thing on a regular basis. I mean, we're kind of used to knowing to look for persistent links as librarians, but that's not something a faculty member typically would have to do. So inevitably what we see is faculty members going into EBSCO Discovery Service or JSTOR or something like that. And if they're on campus and they go up to that web address bar, they'll copy that link, come back here to Moodle or Blackboard or whatever, and paste it in. The problems with that is, especially if they're on campus when they copy that link, the right proxy prefix won't be there, or they'll be missing some key piece of authentication that's not in that URL. Even if they are off campus, there might be session-specific variables in that web address that make the link break later. So what ends up happening is they'll grab that URL and paste it in here, and they'll even test it to make sure it works, and it does because they're sitting at in the same browser on campus. But when a student tries to access it, any number of things could go wrong, from authentication to a page that says your session has timed out, or maybe the right search string wasn't in the URL to begin with. So linking is problematic, and teaching faculty members to use persistent links is not a good enough solution, simply because it's not in their regular workflow. They're not going to remember how to do that kind of stuff, and who can blame them when they've got all sorts of other things that they need to worry about. The other thing I see in the chat here is that they will download the PDF document or full text document out of the database, save it to their desktop, log into their class website, and upload the PDF as a document in the session. And to be honest with you, from a technology perspective, that works beautifully, right? The student clicks on it, it pulls it up, they can print it, they can read it. Everything that needs to happen for the student to interact with that library material works with that. There are other problems with that, though, and I think many of you in the room are already thinking about this. There are actually two issues. One is copyright compliance. From what I understand, if it's kind of part of an ad hoc learning kind of experience, there's an issue where it's not entirely fair use to make a copy of that document and put it up on the site, because if the library stops subscribing to that article, you've still got a copy that you're leveraging for your teaching and learning. The other piece of it is usage statistics. Let's say the faculty member downloads the perfect article and they put it into their learning management system, and the students begin reading it. Well, the library collected one full text download of that article when the faculty member downloaded it, but you're missing all of those statistics that happen and that should be gathered when students are reading that particular article. So while that particular process is actually quite easy and easy to do, it fails on other levels. And the last kind of thing I see in the chat box is we have no idea if faculty members are even using library materials in their classrooms, and that's not entirely an unusual position to be in. Mostly because these learning management systems have not really been in the library's domain. In fact, if you're at a campus like some of the campuses I've worked at before, and no offense to the IT departments at these institutions, but sometimes the Blackboard admins and the library systems people just don't see eye to eye in terms of what's important for teaching and learning. And often it's hard to convince IT administrators to change anything about the system in order to get the library to be a part of it. As a result of that, I think the best efforts that the library world has had in getting integration into these learning management systems has been quite, kind of limited to a link to the library's homepage in the classes, or maybe a search box that goes into a class. But each of those are not really the most useful things in the world to have in a class. So this is where Curriculum Builder comes into play. I'm going to actually close out of this PowerPoint real quick and pop open Canvas. Curriculum Builder is designed to address that particular need of a faculty member wanting to assign materials that the library has to their students. So I'm going to go ahead and log in here as a course instructor. This is Canvas, by the way. So all of you that have Canvas on your campuses, the demonstration you see here will be almost identical to what would happen on your campus. If you use another learning management system like Moodle or Sakai or Desire to Learn, the steps at the beginning will be slightly different, but by the time we actually launch the tool, it's going to be about the same. I want to point out that if I haven't mentioned your learning management system so far, and I've seen a few obscure ones come through the chat box there, there is a quick and easy way to tell if this particular tool will work, and I will get this to you kind of towards the end of the session. So I'm going to go into a class here. I've got a class, and it's called EBSCO Demonstration Course, and this is what Canvas looks like whenever I log in as a faculty member. On the left-hand side, you'll see if I go to discussions, I can create a new discussion, and I have done so. There's like a little introduce yourself discussion board that I want my students to come in here and give a little introduction to who they are. Here's my grade book. If I go to files, I can do things like upload my syllabus. And if I go to modules, this is probably the most popular place for faculty members to create content for their students to interact with. And I've structured mine such that I have like activities for week 1, week 2, week 3. So I kind of have my Canvas class website set up in a weekly kind of breakdown. Again, if I wanted to bring library materials in here, it's going to be a challenge. So let me show you where Curriculum Builder comes in. On the right-hand side of the screen here, you'll notice there's a plus symbol. This plus symbol is going to allow me to add new activities for this particular week. So I'm going to click on this plus symbol next to week 2. This is the screen that I see, and as you can see here in this drop-down menu, I can add a new assignment for my students, or I can craft a quiz for my students, or post a discussion that I want them to have. I can also just put in some content, so if I just wanted to type in something for them to see, I could do that. External URL is if I wanted to give them a link to the library's website or link them out to some news story I want them to read, I could just punch in the URL here and give the label a link. All this to say is that this particular screen that I'm looking at now, it's something that faculty members are familiar with because it's core functionality to Canvas. One thing that's in this drop-down menu at the very bottom is something called External Tool. And what pops up underneath External Tool whenever I select it is a list of pre-configured tools that a faculty member can use in their course. These tools might do just about anything, and in fact, there are a lot of textbook publishers that have external tools. So for example, McGraw-Hill and Macmillan and all of the big textbook publishers out there, almost every single one of them have an external tool, and the faculty members use that in order to put online textbooks up for their students. There are other tools out there, like VoiceThread is one that got a lot of traction at St. Ed's. It's a way where faculty members can post up like an image or something like that, and students can go in and add their own audio annotations to that particular tool. That's an external tool as well. So external tools may not be as unfamiliar to faculty members as they might seem to you all right now. In fact, I'd never heard of external tool as a librarian. So I'm mostly pointing this out that so far everything that we've done will be completely normal to faculty members. Here I've got something called OneSearch Reading List. This is Curriculum Builder, but you can brand it however you'd like, and this particular class we've decided to brand it the same way we would brand our discovery system, OneSearch. And we added reading lists here to give faculty members an idea of what's going to happen whenever they decide to use the tool. Whenever I select that, it pre-fills in the URL. All I need to do now is give this list a title. So what I'm actually doing here is I'm putting together a list of readings for my students to interact with. I'm going to call this my Week 2 reading list, and I'll hit Add Item. Before I forget, I'm going to go ahead and publish this. So Canvas has a feature that it doesn't show the things that you put in here to students until you specifically publish it. So I don't forget later, I'm going to go ahead and publish it now. What that did is it created a link that says Week 2 Reading List. Whenever I click on it, this is going to launch Curriculum Builder. All right. What I am searching here, what this search box does is it searches through your library's collection. And it's the same as if they had gone through the library's website and done a search, except we're leveraging EDS in this particular interface. Now, this can either search EBSCO Discovery Service, if that's what you subscribe to. If you don't subscribe to EDS, alternatively, this can search just through your EBSCO databases. So the key differentiator there is if you have EDS, this box effectively searches everything that your library has access to, whereas if you don't have EDS, this will be limited to your EBSCO databases. So that's a key differentiator I want to point out here. Let's see, I'll go ahead and do a search here. And in fact, I've got a couple of sample searches already on the right. Let's imagine I already know what I want my students to read. So I'm going to paste in an article title that I already know that I want my students to read. So I'll give this a search. All right, the search which for studies of transformational leadership, and there's the article right there. I'm going to click on this big button here that says Add to Reading List. And the moment I click on that, what's happened in the background is it's added this item to a list of readings that my students are going to be presented with. And what's really nice is in the background, we have not made a copy of that document. What we've done is we've actually just copied the appropriate persistent link into this list for students to interact with. That has a couple of benefits, all right? First of all, I'm not violating any copyright issues by making a copy of the PDF document. Second, every time a student accesses this piece of this full text article, that's going to register in my full text usage statistics because each and every click of the PDF document is going to my licensed copy of that article. The other benefit here is that faculty members don't need to grapple with any linking. All they do is click the button and it's part of their reading list at this point. There are other things you can do here. So for example, let's say in addition to this one that I know I wanted them to read, I want to find other articles about transformational leadership. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that and just do a keyword search for transformational leadership. All right, so I get my articles here. There are a couple of things going on in the background. One is as a library. So as the library, I was able to decide I don't want my faculty members presented with articles that we don't subscribe to. So in the background, what I've done is I've limited these results to only things that are available in full text. If you know EDS, that means that will include both articles that are available through EBSCO, but also through any of your other content providers. So JSTOR links will appear here, Science Direct links will appear here. So that's what I've got here is a list of things that our library subscribes to. There are options to allow faculty members to see those limiters and uncheck them, but I don't really recommend that unless you've got a system in place where you can take those requests from faculty members and go out and buy those items. If you don't have EDS, this will only be searching your EBSCO content. So hopefully that answers the question that I saw that's come through. I'm going to add a few more items here. Toss that in there, toss that in there. Let's see. Actually, can I get an audio check here, make sure people are hearing me? I've got a couple of people saying they lost audio. If someone would type into chat. Okay, great, thank you. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead. There are other things I can do on this screen. So once I've found a couple of items, I'm going to toss a few things in here. I want to point out that if English is not your university's first language, this works well with other character sets too, and you can even search on some of these things. So for example, if I copy this string, and this may not be important to everyone out there, but it's important to know how compliant this particular tool is. I have no idea what I just searched for. I'm sure it has something to do with leadership, but you can see here that the searching works fine for other character sets too. I'm going to go back to my transformational leadership search though. Okay. I can also use the facets and limiters on the left-hand side. So for example, if I wanted to limit by subject heading, in particular when it comes to transformational leadership, I'm interested in how that impacts job satisfaction. So on the left-hand side, I'm going to click on that particular limiter, and now I'm looking at that limited set of results here. And here's another, oh, I already had that one. I'm going to put in that one there too. This is just to illustrate that faculty members can do some pretty advanced searching in this tool in order to find the materials to assign to their students. The most common use case we've seen, yes, we do support Hebrew and any UTF-8, it's UTF-8 compliant, so there should be no character display issues throughout this. It does search ebooks as well, so anything that's in your for EDS customers, anything that's in your EDS index. So if you could find it in EDS, you're going to find it here. For those EBSCO host customers, if you go into the EBSCO host interface and select all your databases, that's what you're going to be finding here too. And if you do have questions about your specific collection and what would be included in Curriculum Builder, don't hesitate to reach out after this session. Let's take a look and see what we've done. I want to point out that at this point, I could close this window and go off and grade some assignments or interact with my students or do something else. So in sum, the most simple use case of Curriculum Builder is to go into Modules, click on plus, go to External Tool, make a new list, find the items I want and click the Add to Reading List button, and then I'm done. All right, so what we've done is we've eliminated the need to even leave Canvas or Moodle or whatever LMS system you're using, and we've eliminated the need to get good persistent linking. However, there are other features here. If I click on See Current Reading List, this is going to show me the items I've added so far to my reading list here. I can sort them. So for example, I can drag and drop this one to the top. Maybe this one isn't so important, so I'll drag it to the bottom. I can also annotate these things. So I'm going to click on Add Notes here and type in, this is required reading, and then save my notes. So students are going to be able to see that annotation there. I'm going to answer the question about LTI standard, but the quick answer is yes, it's LTI. So this is not a proprietary standard that's being used to interact with the tool. That answer probably doesn't make sense to most of you, but I'll explain it in a bit more detail in a little bit. I'm going to click on Add Text or Instructions. So some of the feedback we've got directly from faculty members is they don't just want to link out to library readings, they want to be able to link to either websites or just tell their students to read a chapter from their print textbook. That way this list becomes their front to back, everything you need to read before class next week. So here I could type in something like read chapters 5 and 7 by Tuesday. I'll add that to my list, and I'm going to add a web resource. I'm going to have it go to library.stedwards.edu, and they'll put it. I'll label the link library website because I want them to look at that. I've added that to my reading list. So it doesn't just have to be library materials that go into this reading list. It can be anything you can link to. Some of the use cases we've seen so far is linking out to things that are on electronic reserve. And I've got some upcoming enhancements that aren't in here today, but that will integrate better with e-reserve systems that I'll talk about in a moment. And I'll bump that to the top, why not? I can also reuse older lists. So if I made a list in another course that is pretty much the list that I want to use in this course, I can click on Import from Existing List up here at the top, find that reading list, view it, and then here are some things that I want in there. That one I want to keep, that one I want to keep. I can also just check them all if I wanted to. I'll just import this one here, and I'll copy those readings into my list, and I've now copied that particular one in here, notes and all. I also want to point that in the Import from Existing List, there's also this notion of public lists. And right now my list is private, and all lists by default are private. But if I go back to my reading list here, you'll notice that it says this list is private. And if I click on this, it's going to change it to public. That means other course instructors at my institution will be able to see my list now and copy it. This might work well in scenarios where you have large lecture-style courses and a number of discussion sections that each have their own learning management system class site. In this way, one TA could build these lists and the rest of them could simply copy it into their own courses. This also works in the sense that if the library wanted to curate these lists on behalf of faculty members, they could build the list themselves in Canvas, in a dummy class in Canvas, make that list public, and then it's pretty simple for faculty members just to import that list into their own class. So there's some synergy here with existing services where you may be building the list on behalf of faculty members. And this is another process that we've got scheduled for improvement come December, and I'll describe the improvement there in a bit. All right, so let's actually take a look at the student experience now. So the faculty experience is go off, do a search, find the items you want, click on the Add to Reading List, and if you want to sort and annotate the things, go for it. So I'm actually going to switch my view here now. So I'm going to go to Settings in Canvas. I'm going to go to Student View. All right, so now I'm logged into Canvas as a student. And if I go to Modules, I see that my faculty member has posted something that says Week 2 Reading List. So if I click on it, you'll notice that instead of getting a search box to search through the library's materials, I get just a list of readings to do. All right, so here I see the note where my faculty member said this is required reading. I see that I have to read chapters 5 and 7 by Tuesday. And let's say I want to read this first one here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it. I get a detailed record of this particular item. And on the left-hand side, there's a link to full text. For those of you already familiar with the way that EBSCO Discovery Service works, sometimes the full text is not an EBSCO PDF document. Sometimes this is a custom link that jumps out to JSTOR, or it jumps out to Science Direct, or it goes through your link resolver to get out to ProQuest or something like that. So whatever links that you've got set up in EDS for this particular article are the links that you're going to see here on the left-hand side. When I click on this PDF document, you'll notice that the PDF document loads immediately here and I'm off to the races. So for the student, it's pretty quick and easy to open up that reading list, click on the item that you want to read, and get to reading it. You'll notice that I did not have to log in here, even from off campus. For any EBSCO PDF document where the content is on EBSCO servers, we are not going to enforce an additional login. What I've done here is I've made the assumption that if they were successfully able to authenticate into Canvas and into this class, they're legitimate users of library materials. So for EBSCO content, we've made the decision that let's bypass any particular login and just let them see the PDF document. If this were a JSTOR link or a Science Direct link or something that goes off to a third party that's not EBSCO, it may pass through your library's authentication system. So for example, EasyProxy or something like that. The proxy prefix would be in front of the link. So when they click on this, they may get prompted to log in again to get out to that external document, but from then on, EasyProxy should remember that they're logged in, so they shouldn't be presented with that login each and every time after that. If the login system you use for your library materials is the same as the login system that they use to get into Canvas, they might not actually even see that login. So if your campus uses Shibboleth or some kind of central authentication service like that, this may not even be an issue. All full text links in those cases will just pass them right through to full text because they've already logged in to Canvas. For students, that's all we've got for them, mostly because the story we were trying to work towards is make it as simple as possible for students to, one, understand what they have to read this week, and two, do the actual readings. So I'm going to back out here and go back to the faculty member view of this list, because there's one other piece I want to show you. So I'm logged into this list as a faculty member now, and one thing I'll point out is that I can now tell that one student has accessed this list, and I'm going to get the student name here. This is an option that you can choose to turn off if you don't want, if you don't feel comfortable having EBSCO log when students click on a reading. But the feedback that we've gotten from other libraries so far that have implemented this tool is that it isn't really a violation of user privacy because we're not collecting the things that they're searching for or the things that they're researching for independently. The only thing we're recording here is, did they click on that article that the faculty member assigned them? One of the reasons we built this in too is, to be honest with you, this was the #1 feature request from early adopters of this tool. Faculty members would log into their reading list, and all of the other tools they use in the learning management system tell them, did the student do the assignment? They even go so far, some of these other tools will go so far as to tell them how long the student spent in a particular area of Canvas or Moodle. So that's actually one of the things on our to-do list for Curriculum Builder, is to provide faculty members with a way to tell how long they spent on any particular item. That way they can tell if the student kind of just logged in and jumped out or not. I'm skeptical that this is actually going to be useful, because what if the student actually hits print and then closes it out? Just because they spent like 3 seconds on that page doesn't mean they didn't read the item. So this is not at the top of our priority list. I just want to give you an idea of how enhancements are driven for this particular tool. And by and large, it's driven by faculty member feedback and librarian feedback. So as you hear things from faculty members, you can get in touch with us and we can add that to the enhancement list. But yeah, so that's here too. Let me get back out of this. So now's a good time to clarify how this all actually works in every learning management system. There's a question that came in earlier that I answered somewhat cryptically to everyone who didn't ask the question, and it involves something called the LTI protocol. What that is I mentioned very early on that it would be kind of cumbersome for a library company or a library to have to figure out how Canvas APIs work and how Moodle APIs work and how all of these different services operate. So thankfully, there's a relatively, I'm not going to call it new anymore. This protocol's been out for 6 or 7 years. But there's something called the LTI protocol, which stands for Learning Tools Interoperability. And I have some graphics that's going to help us understand how an LTI tool works. Whoops, I think I may have this. Let me go to, okay. So I want to describe this. So this is actually going to be useful to all of you, because whenever you talk to your learning management system administrators about this tool, LTI is an acronym they might have heard of before. It's not an uncommon thing for tools to use to integrate with these systems. So just as if I were to walk up with a librarian and say, boy, how about that crazy MARC record we saw? MARC is an acronym that a lot of librarians will recognize and know exactly what that means. LTI is similar in the LMS administrator world. It's an acronym that comes up somewhat frequently. So to describe how an LTI tool works, is the LTI tool is actually our own website. So Curriculum Builder is just a website that EBSCO runs. So just like you would go to CNN.com, you could potentially go to curriculumbuilder.ebscohost.com. We have a website, it's called Curriculum Builder. The thing that makes our website special is the LTI part of it. So on the left-hand side of this diagram that you see is a learning management system. And they've got some internal modules like quizzes, posting links for students, folders, and all the organizational things about the class. But there's also a module in every LTI compliant learning management system called LTI Tool. Sometimes it's called External Tool. So it might be worded slightly different for the faculty members, because LTI is somewhat of a turnoff whenever you're looking at a list of things you want to enable. So it might be called External Tool. They're both the same thing, essentially. What the LTI tool does is all it is a link to that other website. But there's something special about that link. It's not just a regular old link that jumps a user to the website. Instead, when they click on that link, there's what's called launch data that goes with it. So we're not just sending the users to that website, we're also telling that website, hey, here comes Joe Smith. Their email address is jsmith@mycollege.edu. They're a student who's coming in, and they're coming in from my college university in Austin, Texas. It also tells them which class they're coming from, what the name of the class is that they're coming from, which link in the course did they click to get to the website. So every single link to Curriculum Builder in a class is going to be unique. So I even know which one of those links they followed to get into Curriculum Builder and what the label on that link was. What this batch of data allows us to do whenever the student gets to Curriculum Builder is to design the experience we want them to have. You'll notice when I was a student in Canvas, I didn't get a search box. I couldn't edit the reading list. And the way that we were able to present that experience is we paid attention to what role that LTI launch told us was coming into the tool. Oh, here comes a student. I'm going to give them just a list of readings to do. Whereas if an instructor had come into our website, we would be able to present them with that search box, etc. There's also some identifiers in this launch data that tell us what your institution is. So I know whose EDS to ping to figure out what results to show to your students. That's how we can distinguish, is it, is it LSU coming in? Is it Santa Rosa Junior College coming in? That way we can tell a bit more about who's actually entering into the system. So once they get to this system, we're then able to present that kind of reading list experience. There have been some other questions so far on which LMSs does it work with. Blackboard, Moodle, Desire Learn, Canvas, Sakai, Pearson, Genzabar, Etudes, Star. The Star is not our own note for that. It's the actual name of the product. Schoolology. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So if you don't see your learning management system here, there's a link in this slide that I'll put in the chat box so you can copy it if you're not using one of these systems. But there's a list of LTI compliant learning management systems. To be honest with you, the best way to find out is to Google LTI and then the name of your learning management system. And if you get any hits in Google that say how to configure an LTI tool in your system, then it's probably LTI compliant. Again, the nice thing about the LTI protocol is it's standard. That means EBSCO doesn't have to design a new curriculum builder to work with every single one of these learning management systems. We were able to develop one tool, and it works with all of these systems in a similar fashion. So that brings me around to another feature that I want to show you here. So I'm going to come back into Canvas. I want to point out that every library, let me go ahead and get to admin. Every library is going to get access to an administrator's panel for their curriculum builder. For those of you that already have curriculum builder, this part is relatively new. You had access to administrator panel. It was mostly useless before the release in August. So I'm going to log in here with a consumer key and secret that we will provide you to log into curriculum builder here. So let me go get my password real quick. So we give your library a login here, and that will get you into this administrator's panel. This is where you set up, well, what logo do I want to show at the top left-hand corner? Right now I have this generic red library logo. You can specify a logo for your campus. What email address do I want displayed at the bottom of the screen? So if a faculty member has questions about how to use a tool, this could be the library's email address or some point person at your library to answer those questions. This would be a link to your library's homepage. At the bottom of every screen, there's a link to library home. So you'll want to put your library's web address there. Text to display at the top of the screen. Is this brought to you by the university library kind of subtext underneath the reading list title at the top? Link to the EDS label. This actually probably should say link to EBSCO host label because this is the label that will be on the link that jumps the user into the EBSCO host version of the document. So if they're looking at a detailed record in Curriculum Builder, there's a link on the left that says see it in EDS, and clicking on that will take them to the record in EDS for that particular item. For any of you that are into doing your own cascading style sheets, so your web developers and web designers out there, you can actually override all of the styles of Curriculum Builder by plugging in a link to your own CSS style sheet here. That way, you can make Curriculum Builder look and feel however you'd like. I mentioned there was an option to decide if you want to collect student names or not. Right now, this is toggled to yes, but if I toggle this to no, this will turn off that data collection to where Faculty members won't be able to see who's done the readings, but you can also rest easy knowing that EBSCO isn't collecting usernames either. I will point out that we don't use that data for nefarious purposes. In fact, we collect their name, not their email address when they come in and do a reading, so we don't even have ways of reaching out and contacting students. The footer text is just an area at the bottom of the screen that you can put free-form text in. Usually it's a copyright notice that libraries want to put in there at the bottom, but you don't have to put anything there. Copy course support. This is critical, mostly because as semesters go on, so let's say you set up a class in fall, and you build 3 or 4 reading lists for that class. Well, you're teaching the same class in spring. It would be nice to not have to rebuild all of those reading lists. So when this is toggled to yes, that means whenever a student launches that reading list or a faculty member launches that reading list for the first time next semester, it's going to recognize, hey, there's another list that was named this exact same thing. Do you want to just automatically import into this one? That way it makes keeping those lists going forward much easier. I mentioned that you can decide to show faculty members that limiter to be able to expand their results to beyond the library's collection. So if I toggle this to no, it's not going to hide those anymore. Faculty members will be able to uncheck those boxes and see items that the library does not currently subscribe to. The 1 or 2 libraries that have flipped this to no, they've got a process in place where underneath those items that they don't subscribe to, instead of sending the user to interlibrary loan, which is what they would normally do for a typical discovery search, instead what they're doing there is sending the user into their document request system. And then that way the library is notified that a faculty member wants a particular article for their course, and they've already got a process in place to go out and buy that article for them. So if you've got a system like that in place, this tool can actually facilitate a new avenue for faculty members to get to that system. Curriculum Builder itself doesn't deal with copyright clearance or anything like that, so this is not a replacement for ARIES or other systems like that that handle these document delivery and document purchasing kind of things, but it is on the roadmap that we may consider figuring out how to do that with Curriculum Builder alone. The show return to course link at the top of the page. We'll put a link at the top of every reading list that helps the user get back to their class. And then finally, open all lists in a new window. I'm going to click on no here just to show you what that looks like. I'm going to update my settings. Let me close this out. And now I'm going to launch this list. You'll notice instead of opening in a new window, it just opens here within the frame of Canvas. So that's another option that you have for this particular tool. We're not defaulting everybody to doing this just yet, because what we've noticed is if you have custom links in your search results that are not HTTPS, and your learning management system is using HTTPS to access the tool, embedding it in the iframe doesn't work. So you'll want to pop it open in a new window in most cases, although a future release will allow all libraries to have this embedded kind of feature in it, probably in December. Other things that you can do, I probably shouldn't have closed that admin screen, so let me get back to Curriculum Builder admin. Log in here. So other things that you can see on here is you can preview lists. So if I open up a list here, I preview that list, I can see what my faculty members have on lists. One of the coming features in December is the library will have the ability to edit these lists too. So that way you don't have to be a TA or an instructor in the class in order to find the list and add things to it. This will be greatly beneficial, I think, for campus IT administrators who no longer have to make you a TA in the classes in order to go in and help a faculty member make these lists. In that case I mentioned earlier too, when you have a system where you can go out and purchase articles on behalf of the faculty member, this will also give you the venue to go in and insert those readings right into the list once you clear the copyright for those items. So it will become kind of a full service type of screen here. In addition to the user statistics that will be in EBSCO admin, you're going to see how many times a faculty member searched Curriculum Builder and how many total full-text downloads came out of Curriculum Builder. It is a separate profile in EBSCO admin, so that means all of the statistics that it's generating will be kept separate from your other statistics. That way you can evaluate it on its own. But I do have a statistics tab here in this screen to give you more of that qualitative data of how the tool is being used. On this screen, you'll get to see who are the instructors actively using this tool. So I can see that David Edwards has created 9 lists. Mike Abramson has created 4 lists. And I can also tell which courses on my campus are making lists. So this gives me a sense of which departments are adopting the tool, which ones might stand for some outreach. Who are the faculty members I might want to approach to get ideas to feed back to EBSCO in terms of improving the service, and who are the faculty members that are my power users. So this more qualitative data gives you another way of telling how the tool is being used and adopted on your campus. So I've got one final slide before I open it up to general questions here. Oops, let's click on that bottom right one when I think this is the one I need to click. So upcoming features is better handling of a known issue with Curriculum Builder right now, in the sense that if your Canvas or Blackboard or whatever learning management system you're using uses HTTPS as its means of letting users use the system, we're going to have better support for that particular scenario. It will work now just fine. It just has to pop open in a new window. Then there's this also notion of canonical list. I mentioned that copy forward feature. What we're doing now is to accommodate, so there's some IT departments out there where an instructional designer is the one who actually builds the course and builds the reading lists and that kind of thing. And what's problematic for scenarios where it's an instructional designer building a course is whenever a faculty member creates a copy of that course, they actually have to, every time they do that, they're actually creating a copy of the reading list too. So anytime the instructional designer decides, oh, I'm going to add some new readings to this reading list, none of the copies of that reading list get updated. So this new feature of canonical lists will allow you to specify, I don't want to create a new copy of the list, I just want to copy this official version of the list. That way, if it gets updated, my copy of the list also gets updated. Email notifications for drop subscriptions. Already right now, if your library stops subscribing to a particular database or something and a faculty member had added it to their reading list, it's already going to gray out and say, it looks like your library no longer subscribes to this item. Please contact your library for assistance with this particular reading. It already will do that today. What I'm going to do next is generate email notifications. So it will automatically check every night to see if there are any readings in your faculty members' reading list that are no longer part of your subscriptions. And if it finds one, the moment it finds it, it's going to email both the faculty member and you saying, uh-oh, it looks like there's something on this reading list that's no longer available. That way you can kind of take proactive measures in order to do that. You will also have access to a list of the things that your faculty members have in a spreadsheet type of format. So that might help in your collection development decisions, because I can anticipate, wanting to notify faculty members ahead of time rather than waiting to the moment that the subscription drops in order to let them know. So all of this to say is that come December, there will be nice, intelligent ways to handle collection management when faculty members might have these things embedded in their courses. Foldering options. Some learning management systems, particularly I think Sakai and maybe Desire to Learn, I could be wrong about that one, but for LTI tools there's only one place to put it, and that's in the left-hand bar of the class. You can't create multiple reading lists in a class. You can only put one link on the left-hand side. So for that scenario, we're building in foldering options. So if a student clicks on that reading list on the left-hand side, the faculty member can actually organize the readings into subfolders in a reading list. The full text link on the reading list page. So you might have noticed that when I was a student and I launched a reading list, I had to click in the detailed record in order to get the full text. I'm going to bring that full text link out to the reading list page itself. Again, just reducing the number of clicks. A single item redirect. So if a faculty member adds only one thing to the reading list, rather than have the students go into a whole reading list scenario, it's just going to take them to the full text of that item. That way, when they click on it from the learning management system, it's straight to full text if there's only one thing in that reading list. There have been some concerns with us using those names and email addresses as a way to identify who the faculty members are using the tool. So we're going to give you an option to use the unique identifier that's from the learning management system. That's anonymized, which means you won't easily be able to tell who's been using Curriculum Builder on your campus, but it will protect the identity of those users if there are campus policies against sending names and email addresses. I'd contact your IT department to find out for sure. What we found is LTI tools are already a known kind of thing, so IT departments frequently don't have any problem sharing email addresses and usernames across the tool. However, if yours does, you won't have to. That time on page data I mentioned earlier, and a little bit more search options like being able to search by publication year. So that's what I got for you. I'm going to take a look through the questions that come through now. So how much does Curriculum Builder cost? Is it an add-on subscription annually? There are two ways to get Curriculum Builder. One is the open source route. This is kind of this is probably the first example of EBSCO's movement to a kind of a different model of producing these little add-ons and widgets. Is Curriculum Builder's source code is actually located on our customer wiki. And if you have someone on your campus that doesn't get pale whenever you mention PHP and MySQL, then you could potentially download Curriculum Builder and host it locally on your own server. That way, you don't have to pay anything for this particular tool. The only drawback there is our support team cannot answer any questions relating to troubleshooting your local installation, mostly because there are too many variables when you're hosting it locally. Was your server set up correctly, et cetera, et cetera? And our frontline support isn't equipped to answer server configuration options. So if you do decide to go the free route and download the open source version of it, it's like free puppy, not free beer. You're going to have to take care of the thing. But if you've already kind of got a process in place for handling those kinds of applications, that is an option. We have found that many libraries, even those that do have the capacity for hosting it themselves, prefer our second option, which is our hosted service. And in this instance, in fact, this is a great time to show you. Watch this. I'm in Canvas now, and I'm clicking on Settings. I'm going to go to Apps, and I'm going to go to View App Configurations. This is where I would go as a Canvas administrator to plug in Curriculum Builder. I'm going to click on Add App, and this form, we provide you a welcome letter that has all the information that needs to go in this form. So I'm going to call mine Reading List instead of Curriculum Builder. I'm going to go in here and punch in the consumer key that my EBSCO rep gave me and the secret that my EBSCO rep gave me. My EBSCO rep also gave me what the launch URL is, so I'm going to plug that in here. And that's it. I click on Submit at the bottom, and Curriculum Builder is now configured for Canvas. So it is that simple whenever you go with our hosted version. What's also nice is all of the updates that I push, all of these new features that I write for Curriculum Builder, you just automatically get whenever they're launched. You don't have to go through an update process. You don't have to do anything. You just start seeing the new features the moment they're out there. With the do-it-yourself version, I will post the new code to the EDS Wiki, but whoever's managing it on your campus will be the one having to deal with it. There is a fee for our hosting version, and essentially what we're charging for is making sure that we have the right infrastructure in place to where Curriculum Builder isn't going to crash at inopportune times for your faculty members and students. So the same service level agreement that we give you for EBSCO host, you're going to get for Curriculum Builder. We also do nightly, not nightly, I think it's even more frequent than that, backups. So if something catastrophic happens, we're able to recover from that. So essentially what you're investing in when you go with the hosted version is ease of installation, access to immediate upgrades whenever I push the upgrades, not needing to invest staff time into hosting this thing, as well as all of the infrastructure that goes into making it a stable product. Plus, we have found it's much easier to get IT administrators to buy into a cloud-based solution like this than it is to go with something the libraries propped up on their own PHP MySQL server. So there's some advantages and key disadvantages there. I will tell you this too, we've also seen some circumstances where the libraries approached IT as a source for paying for the hosted solution. So that might be a cost savings for the library that you could consider. All right, some other questions that I've got here. Is the administrative interface separate from other EBSCO administrator interfaces? To some extent, yes, and to some extent, no. If I go into EBSCO admin, let me go into eAdmin here. So many of you may already be familiar with this. And it's totally okay if you all got a split. I'm going to record this. I know we're pushing 1 o'clock here, but I'm going to continue answering questions. Browse for, let me go to a site that has, who has Curriculum Builder? I'm just totally blanking here. I think SUNY does. Yep. So this screen might actually look familiar to you all who have been in EBSCO admin. And in Choose Profile, this is normally where you'd see things like EDS, or you see EBSCO host databases. What you'll see when you go with our hosted version is Curriculum Builder here. This is where you go in and you set the default limiters and facets and the labeling you want on the left-hand side. So if you're familiar with customizing EBSCO host or EDS, then you'll be familiar with the customization options here with Curriculum Builder. That admin screen is more for the user interface changes. So I kind of showed you everything on that particular screen where you change your logo and things like that. Okay, let's see. We don't have EDS. Can we still get the source code used? Yes. So if you're wanting to go with a self-hosted version and you don't have EDS, the code will work equally well in both cases. The cost, so I'm getting a lot of cost questions here. I don't know. I'll tell you my role in this company. I'm the developer of this tool. So all of those features you saw me list, I'm going to go in and write the code to make that happen. The beauty of that is I stay blissfully away from the sales team. So I would recommend that you contact your local sales rep in terms of finding a quote for it. I do believe it is based on FTE of your campus. There is a unique issue with HBR items in reading lists. Right now we are working on a way to prevent that due to the licensing of HBR content, but right now that's a user education piece of it. So whenever you go out and you teach faculty members how to use Curriculum Builder, you should discourage them from putting those HBR articles on there, although they will disappear probably with the next release. If you don't know who your sales rep is, you can contact Rachel Freeman. And Rachel, you may want to unmute your audio and let us know how to best get in touch with you in terms of knowing who to get in touch with.
Sure, great. So you can email me at rfreeman, that's R-F-R-E-E-M-A-N, the number 2, at ebsco.com. That's the best way to reach me.
And I've just put that in the chat box too.
Thank
so
you.
You can feel that. One final thing, since I've still got everyone, is how many of you use LibGuides? Hopefully, I'm not going to wait for you to answer because I'm running overtime. But ebsco.libguides.com. This is a great thing for you to go to following this, and we've also put this particular guide in the SpringShare community site. So if you have LibGuides, you can actually copy these boxes into your own local instance of LibGuides. But this will show you videos on how to use the tool. So this particular tab is for course instructors. It gives you ideas on how you might use the reading list tool, a video of how it works. There's also a tab here for learning management system administrators. So if they want to know how to actually configure the tool in one of the learning management systems, these are videos walking you through those procedures. And there's also a tab for librarians that give you a sense of where are those administrative options that I can change and what can I do in the system and how might I market it to my campus. So we've got this LibGuide here put together that you can either steal the boxes wholesale from it and put it on your own LibGuide system to better market it to your campus, or you can just use it as a learning resource to share with other people on your campus that you're trying to convince to get Curriculum Builder. Again, we've had pretty good success working with campus IT departments. in doing this. In terms of videos for other learning management systems, the videos that we have here are for Moodle and Canvas, mostly because those are two systems that are open in the sense that I can get access to it and record the video. If you wanted me to create a video for Blackboard, for example, or your own learning management system, I'd be happy to do the demo in that system for you. I just need access to it and you to have Curriculum Builder. So all that to say is I don't have videos for the other ones. It's not due for a lack of trying. It's due to I don't have access to a Blackboard site. So that there's that. Cool. Any other questions I can help answer for you all? I do appreciate you taking the time today to come to this WebEx, and again, don't hesitate to reach out if you need any help.
Thank you, Eric. That was great.
Sure. All right. Looks like questions are done. If you don't hesitate to follow up either with Rachel, she can get questions over to me. That'll work just fine. Great to see you all, and great to see a lot of familiar names in the list. Hey, Antoinette. Hey, Nina. Hey, Cheryl. It's always fun to see friends.